It's 10 a.m. and I still haven't slept. This is every single fight to make after UFC 291 Poirier versus Gaethje 2. I have all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers. And you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them. And that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I have hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal their opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Justin Gaethje viciously head kick KOs Dustin Poirier, and immediately after this, because we're talking about what's going to be next, Conor McGregor starts tweeting about Justin Gaethje, saying he'll slap him around, he'll beat him this, and said he wants to take the fight with Justin Gaethje. Will Justin Gaethje take the fight with him? Absolutely not. Whatsoever. I don't know if you've paid attention to Justin Gaethje and the way he talks about Conor. You can pay that man an extra $1 million. He will not take that fight with Conor McGregor, and Ali Abdelaziz will make sure that he does not take that fight with Conor McGregor, because they know that would be doing Conor McGregor a massive favor by giving him a jump up the rankings that right now, let's just say it, he does not deserve. So I'm thinking Justin Gaethje versus Islam Makhachev. There's no time that Gaethje's going to have more hype than this. He can win his next fight by decision. He can win a next fight by KO. He's not going to replicate the absolute noise he just made after that head kick KO in Salt Lake City in the main event of a pay-per-view. He's the BMF champion, but I don't even care about the BMF thing. I feel like that was sort of like a sub-note type thing. It did not feel like a belt ceremony. Either way, Justin Gaethje, Islam Makhachev, amazing matchup. If Makhachev gets past Charles Oliveira, which I do believe is going to happen, I don't think Oliveira is going to be beating Makhachev in the rematch. I'm leaning towards Makhachev in that fight prediction, after the first fight especially, because it was so short of time ago. And I feel like Justin Gaethje versus Islam Makhachev is going to happen next. Not only because it does make sense ranking-wise, and they do need a new opponent for Islam Makhachev, but if Ali Abdelaziz, who manages Islam Makhachev and manages Justin Gaethje, has anything to do with it, which he does, he'll make sure that those two end up fighting each other, so he gets a double paycheck, and no matter what, one of his guys remains a champion in the lightweight division regardless. That's what he's going to push for. Gaethje wants the world championship. He made that very clear. And Islam Makhachev is going to be looking to fight Justin Gaethje as well if he does beat Oliveira, because that is a big name in the lightweight division. And to be fair, it just sort of guarantees another big pay-per-view fight after Makhachev versus Oliveira 2, while we build up a potential Arman Tsarukyan matchup in the meantime. We move on to the loser of the main event, Dustin Poirier. Gonna need some time off. I don't think he needs that much time off though. December might be an appropriate return date. Maybe January could be a return date next year. Who knows? By the way things are looking, with the amount of championship fights that we have to be ready to be booked at the end of the year, we could be looking at Pereira versus somebody, which we'll get to in a second. Yuri Prohaska, you know what I'm going to do with him, in the main event of December, and then Volkanovski versus Topuria in the co-main event. So that doesn't leave any room for McGregor. But January, McGregor's fought in January many times before. I think twice before he's fought in January. Dustin Poirier, at this point in his career, if he's not going to be retiring, it's Conor McGregor. I don't know why it took so long to reveal him, but it's Conor McGregor. I know that he doesn't deserve it. I know that someone else deserves a shot against Poirier. If I had my own way, I would love to see Poirier take on the winner of Gamrot versus Fiziev. That would be logical, because they would have earned a shot against Dustin Poirier. I'd even take in terms of merit, Poirier-Dan Hooker rematch would be cool. But you can sell the unfinished business type thing. And if the UFC is going to bait Poirier to remain in the UFC and keep fighting, because I haven't heard him talk about retirement, so I guess maybe he mentioned something about talking to his wife first and stuff like that, but I don't think Poirier's going to want to go out off of a head kick flatline KO like that. So I think they'll do Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 4, and if they offer Dustin Poirier pay-per-view shares, then he's 100% going to take that fight against Conor McGregor and take that multi-million-dollar payday yet again, because why wouldn't he? This is what he's been working for his entire career, the chance to make that real money. So Poirier McGregor 4, likely to happen in January. That's what I think, at least anyway. And for McGregor, he's got a good chance, seeing as Poirier's coming off a KO loss and hasn't got a ton of momentum. So, Poirier, McGregor 4, likely what's going to happen, even though I'd rather see Poirier fight a legit contender in the winner of Fiziev Gamrot. We move on to the co-main event. Alex Pereira, I spoiled it a second ago. Yuri Prochazka is the matchup to make for the vacant light heavyweight world championship, because if he wins that one, he will be looking at Israel Adesanya in the middle of 2024, maybe late 2024, regardless of what happens with Adesanya at middleweight, right? If Adesanya loses, he won't lose to Strickland. He beats Strickland, fights Du Plessis, January, February area, maybe February. They go to Australia again because they went there February at the start of this year. Maybe they go to Australia again in February. Maybe they go to New Zealand in February. Who knows? Maybe they go to South Africa in February and they do Adesanya versus Du Plessis. Regardless of what happens in that fight, and if Adesanya doesn't get an immediate rematch, the move to light heavyweight is still logical, seeing as Alex Pereira might well be the champion. Now, Yuri has a solid chance. I just think it's a much easier matchup for Pereira than Jan Blachowicz was. And Jan Blachowicz, he just lost to Alex Pereira. So I think Alex Pereira is going to beat Yuri. But either way, December, main event of a pay-per-view. This locks down a great year of pay-per-view cards. That would mean we would now have, after an amazing card here, we would have August O'Malley Sterling. We would have September Adesanya Strickland. Great 2 massive pay-per-view main events. Then Oliveira Makhachev 2. Massive. Jones versus Miocic and Covington Edwards. Massive. And then December, Pereira versus Prochazka for the vacant light heavyweight world championship. Sorry, Jamal Hill. I know they promised you a title shot on your return, but if Ankalaev wins, he kind of should get a title shot. And if Adesanya's winning at middleweight and Pereira's the light heavyweight champ, they are going to make that trilogy. So I reckon they'll probably do Jamal Hill Ankalaev for a title shot at some point down the line, which might mess over both of them, but that's how business works. Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka, next fight to make in December. Let's see it go down. That's a massive, massive matchup. Let's not have Pereira wait out too long. He's getting old. Let's have him do his thing now while he still can and while he's in his prime. Pereira versus Prochazka is the matchup to make, in my opinion. Absolutely sells itself. A great matchup. We move on to the loser of the co-main event, Jan Blachowicz. Now, this one's tough because he might retire. He genuinely might retire. If he doesn't retire, at this point, they're going to want to move the division along with Jan Blachowicz. If Ankalaev loses to Rakic in October, which could be happening, by the way, could be happening in terms of a fight. I think he would beat Rakic, but could be happening. If he loses to Rakic in October, then they could rematch him and Blachowicz. But timeline-wise, I think Jan Blachowicz is going to want to get that taste out of his mouth. And if he is going to return and fight again, I don't see him waiting a long time. I see him getting back in there this year. So I'm saying December, UFC Fight Night, Poland, wherever you want to do it there. Make it happen. You know what I mean? Make it happen. Fight Night in Poland. Massive event for Jan Blachowicz. If he wins, he can retire. If he loses, he can retire in front of a Polish crowd. I don't remember the last time they've been there. I don't think they've ever been to Poland. Maybe they have at some point. But either way, they should try and go there again. Jan Blachowicz, Nikita Krylov. Jan Blachowicz beat him years ago when he was very, very young. Krylov this is. And Jan Blachowicz when he was closer to his 30s. Choked him out. So I feel like they should do the rematch. Krylov's massively improved since. He is the most deserving contender outside the top 5 of getting a top 5 opponent. He's been on a run recently. So let's do Jan Blachowicz Krylov 2 in a Fight Night main event with maybe, who knows what happens to Gamrot. A Gamrot in the co-main event versus another top-ranked lightweight. Makes all the sense in the world. Make it happen. Jan Blachowicz versus Nikita Krylov. They have a bunch of Polish guys. They have Rebecki, Mateusz Rebecki on the card as well. They have Marcin Prachnio. They've got Polish guys to work with here, so let's do that in my opinion. Plus, they could put some other European guys on there. David Dvorak. You know what I'm saying? Around that area. We move on to another fighter. Derrick Lewis won in the feature fight and got a flying knee KO over Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. UFC's going to have to pay him the big bucks, or PFL's going to snatch him up for a rematch with Ngannou. You know that's true. So, Lewis is the biggest winner of this entire card, because he's going to get a nice new contract. Maybe only a 3-fight deal. They won't maybe extend it for too long, but he will get a nice contract. Alexander Volkov's fighting Taito Ivasa in Australia. At the moment, at the heavyweight division, you can't really, if Volkov wins or Tuivasa wins, give them a top-ranked opponent that's going to be a title elimination bout, even though otherwise they might deserve it, because we've got to hold it up with this Jones-Miocic situation, even though Miocic hasn't earned it at all. Derrick Lewis versus, who I think will win between Volkov and Tuivasa in a couple of weeks' time, Alexander Volkov. The rematch, maybe on the December pay-per-view, if Volkov is looking for a quick enough turnaround, that could work, in my opinion. Derrick Lewis, Alexander Volkov too. You all know the story. Volkov was absolutely destroying him. Lewis lands a punch in the last 30 seconds, wins the fight for himself. I'd love to see this fight ran back. I know Volkov's higher than Lewis in the rankings, and normally you'd say, why would he look down the rankings after he's on a win streak and he's coming off another big win? But the fact that Lewis has beaten before would be an enticing factor for Volkov to take that fight down the rankings against Derrick Lewis. And also, I don't want to see Derrick Lewis versus, like, Alexander Romanov or something. You know what I mean? Like, they're just... If he doesn't fight Volkov in a rematch, they're going to give him a tough up-and-comer. So let's do Derrick Lewis-Volkov too. The storyline's there. It'll be a big matchup. Everyone knows about it because of how highlight-worthy it was last time. Make that matchup happen in December if Volkov wins in good enough fashion and doesn't take too much damage against Tai Tuivasa. If Tuivasa wins, somehow we can work out Derrick Lewis, Jairzinho, Rozenstruik at some point. We move on to another fight, which is Bobby Green. He won against Tony Ferguson. Ferguson retire. Just going to get it out of the way. Don't want to see him fight anymore. He hasn't got it no more. Simple as that. He's a geriatric old man. It hurts to say this, but I just have to say the truth. He's finished out here. And if I see another interview of him saying 6 fights until I get the title shot, no. Stop putting us through this. You can't fight anymore. Simple as that. Your chin is wide up in the air and you punch like someone who's blind. So let's do Bobby Green. No offense to Ferguson. I'm just hurt that badly. Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett is the fight to make. I know Matt Frevola called out Paddy Pimblett, but I say Frevola fights on the MSG card. It would be a great fight for Frevola and Pimblett because Frevola did call him out on the mic, and I wish Bobby Green would have called him out on the mic, but I think schedule-wise, for a December pay-per-view card, Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett might be the best move you can make for Paddy Pimblett because right now the casual fans know about Bobby Green. He's been on main cards of pay-per-views. He's won on main cards of pay-per-views. He's had interview moments that have gone viral. He likes to spice up the fight with trash talk. If he's willing to trash talk Tony Ferguson, I can bet you he's going to be willing to trash talk Paddy Pimblett. So let's do Bobby Green, Paddy Pimblett. You know what you do with Bobby Green? You put him at maybe number 15 in the rankings in the lightweight division after that win. Maybe not. And that way you can say Pimblett's facing a ranked opponent at number 15 and it builds up the fight. Make it happen. Green, Pimblett. Whilst Green still got it. I think Bobby Green wins, but I'd love to see Bobby Green get that opportunity against a massive name in Paddy Pimblett. And that would make the December pay-per-view card Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka main event. Co-main event, you've got Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. Feature fight, Derrick Lewis versus Alexander Volkov. Opener of the main card, Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett. And then 4th fight down, which would be massive as well, Kevin Holland versus a potential Neil Magny matchup. Not the craziest matchup in the world, but Kevin Holland, I think, has earned his spot on the main card of a pay-per-view, and that sets the December pay-per-view. Done. Finished. We're done with the December pay-per-view. Kevin Holland, Neil Magny. I know Gabriel Bonfirm called out Neil Magny, but I have another matchup for him. And let's be real, although Gabriel Bonfirm had a good win, it's not like Giles was a world beater that's going to get you a ranked opponent. You know, there's welterweights that have had to do more to get towards a ranked opponent. You know what I mean? So I think Kevin Holland has done a bit more. His win over Chiesa is a win against a ranked opponent, so I think he's more deserving of fighting a guy like Neil Magny. Let's do him versus Magny. He took a sly dig at Neil Magny in his post-fight interview. You can use that to spark a little bit of promo, I guess. I know Bonfirm called out Magny directly, but still, Holland did take a dig at Neil Magny and said if you knew how to do that, you would have beaten Chiesa. So there's a little bit of spice there. So, Kevin Holland, Neil Magny, ranked opponent. Holland, don't go to middleweight, dude. I'm invested in him at welterweight. I want to see that rise. I want to see what he can do at welterweight. And Chimaev's just left. Why are you following Chimaev? You know what I mean? Chimaev's just left. Why would you rejoin a division he's now moved to? He's gone. You're safe to make a run. Let's do him versus Neil Magny in the welterweight division on that main card of a pay-per-view in December. Look at that card I've just made. Pereira, Prochazka main event. Co-main, Volkanovski Topuria. Feature Derrick Lewis Volkov 2. Bobby Green Paddy Pimblett opens it up. 4th fight on the card. Holland versus Magny. Makes all the sense in the world, in my opinion. Think about the press conference. It'd be wonderful. We move on to another fighter, Wonderboy. First of all, Mikel Pereira, for missing weight by 4 pounds when you got gifted a chance at Wonderboy. And he just pulled out of a fight earlier this year as well. For missing that chance and being such an unprofessional, you're moving up to middleweight, or guess what? You're fighting Rinat Fakretinov. How about that? You know what I mean? Guess what? You're fighting Rinat Fakretinov. You move up to middleweight because you've missed weight like 4 times in your career now, or you're fighting Rinat Fakretinov if you want to stay at 170. You lost your right to a jump up the rankings. Really bad. But also really bad, Wonderboy didn't take the fight. I was really looking forward to it. Sad that it didn't happen, but I think he's maybe on his retirement fight. So he doesn't want to ruin it by fighting a guy massively overweight that's going to try and take him down potentially with that weight advantage. So, Stephen Thompson didn't get paid, which tells me not just that the UFC's evil for not paying him, which is really bad of them. They should at least pay him something, even if it isn't his full show money. At least give him like 50k or something. Like, you made weight, we're sorry, but here's 50k for your troubles and your expenses. Cover that. But it might tell us that Wonderboy and the UFC have agreed to make a fight at a later date. You know what I mean? So they haven't given him his show money. They've said, well, you're going to be fighting in a few weeks' time, so we'll pay you then. Stephen Thompson in Australia versus Jack Della Maddalena. There is no reason ever to go to Australia if you're not from Australia. Okay? Flying across the world, making that flight, it's just not worth it for the view of the Sydney Opera House. You know what I mean? It's just not worth the view. Okay? It's going to be like any other city. Why would you ever do it? So, my take is, this is Wonderboy's only chance to go to Australia. He has a massive reason to if he fights JDM. And then he can cross it off the bucket list and say that he went there. There's no other reason to go other than to maybe fight someone there. And it kind of gets it off your bucket list of like, oh, I have a reason to go across the world. This makes more sense. And JDM's a pure striker. So, Stephen Thompson, Jack Della Maddalena, make the matchup happen on the Sydney pay-per-view card, because it's a huge matchup, and that would make the Sydney pay-per-view card a massive pay-per-view card. We'd have main event Adesanya versus Strickland, co-main Tuivasa Volkov, feature fight Stephen Thompson versus Jack Della Maddalena, Cara France is on the card versus Manel Cap, and then maybe another decent fighter from an Australian fighter on there as well, or someone else, who knows. They've already got some other fights on there, but that would make it a really good card, and that would add another pay-per-view worthy fight to it. If we do Wonderboy JDM in Australia in September, makes all the sense in the world. Plus, for Wonderboy, it's kind of the only other pure striker you're going to get offered anytime soon. So I'd take it if I was him. We move on to another fighter. Gabriel Bonfirm got a huge win over Trevin Giles. Got the submission in the first round by guillotine. I think he should be looking to take on Mike Malott from Canada. Last beat Adam Fugit. And listen, I know I was matching up Mike Malott with maybe like a ranked opponent or some other guy, but Gabriel Bonfirm, you just beat Trevin Giles. You beat Trey Waters on the Contender Series. Before that, who did he beat? I can't even remember the guy's name right now off the top of my head. But they're not massive names that are incredibly impressive wins, let's be real. And Adam Fugit is also not a name that's an incredibly impressive win. And before that, he beat CM Punk. So it's not CM Punk, Mickey Gall, sorry. So they're not like beating world beaters to where like, oh, they deserve Neil Magny. They deserve a ranked opponent right now. Let's match them against each other, and the winner deserves a ranked opponent. That's what makes sense to me. Gabriel Bonfirm, Mike Malott, thank you for watching the video. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. And also, Roman Kopylov can fight Andre Muniz, because he just lost to Paul Craig. Kopylov just won. End of the year, December fight night card, somewhere on the main card opener. Roman Kopylov, Andre Muniz. That's what I think. Like and subscribe. See you later. Goodbye.